lights are off. Flying through the hallway like a disco moth. Pitching to the couch, then I loop through the fan. My tiny whoop's grooving like a funky jam. I dip through the doorway, spin by the cab, bounce off the toaster, yeah, I meant to do that. Neighbors knocking, saying, what's that sound? It's my brush motor soul train getting down. Flying through curtain, dancing on breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic, bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of Lite, can't stop it all. I got LED strobes and a shag rug trail. I'm looping through the lava lamp, leaving a tail. My whoop's got rhythm, my stick's got soul. I'm the pilot of the party. On a roll, TV remote's a gate, the lamps a dive. I'm flying like it's 7.5. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad and a soul train frame. Below, we fly that flow. Below, grab that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that roll. Funk and control. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. Bounce that all. We fly it all. Funk it all. We fly it all. Tiny whoop love, funky and free. We fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoop's got rhythm, my stick's got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of Flight, can't stop at all. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all.
Greetings, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti, and I got the voice of Kevin Sumner here.
Damn.
That you were just watching the 1 it's gone. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. 1.6 inch propeller, tiny whoop with 04 Lite. Tonight we're going to talk about the DJI 04 Pro madness. That's the hottest thing in FPV right now, which oddly enough relates to the probably damn near 100 hours of testing that I've done in the last few weeks with 04 Lites, which have the same gyro that these new 04 Pros now have. And we're going to talk some smack. We're going to fly some batteries. I've got the indestructible whoop. We're going to fly it around the basement. You are going to fly your 6 batteries for the day, unless you already have, then you're off the hook. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be story time. as to how I've screwed up the last like week and a half's worth of testing on the 2.5 and 2-inch 04 Lite setups. So we got that going for us, which is not good. In the chat, Mr. Clean was first. Jimmy Bobby was next. Frank Dr. Nicholas, Mo Penguins, Level Up, Sporny, J Tux, Sear FPV, Doc Holiday, FPV Toast, Tom Rides, Ryan Sadat, Uke, J Tux, Levster, Malik, Hale FPV and RC, both Sean and Mindy, I'm assuming, maybe just one of them. Cjo, YouTube just did the thing. Where was I? Dagul McMucus, Drublick Mike, Newborn, Kevin Sumner is in the chat and in my ear and in your ears as well. Three Face, Brocklum, Gangrene, Newborn, Creek Calc, Denzel the Terrible. I think I got everybody. Thanks for coming. CiottiFPV.com to support me. This is a completely crowdfunded thing. That way, everything that I review and all the shit that I talk doesn't get me in any trouble. Every once in a while, a manufacturer will reach out to me and say, "Hey, we would love to send you something for review." And I as politely let them know as I can that if it sucks, I'm going to tell everyone how bad it is. If it's great, I'm going to tell everyone how great it is, and everything in between. There's no punches pulled, and sometimes they magically then don't send me anything, at which point I'm like, oh, okay, so their products suck then. There are some folks that have chosen to send me some stuff, and then they are typically companies who are interested in the feedback, and are looking to actually improve their products. The majority of the stuff that I've gotten and companies that have worked with me have been Newbie Drone, Happy Model, Beta FPV. Weebleed has been a huge supporter, and so yeah, when you see me reviewing something that was sent to me, it actually means something. It means that that company wants to improve their products, and they're willing to have people hammer their stuff on the internet, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, type at CiottiFPV if you'd like to talk to me directly. Over on the website, Patreon is the best way that you can support me. You can get on there for as little as $3 a month. You get a ton of benefits. You get full access to my Discord. You get a YouTube private playlist with like 120 or 130 some odd Discord only, Patreon only live streams, sketchy flying, I don't want to be public, half done edits where I'm like asking for advice, whole bunch of really good stuff. There's a ton of tech articles on the actual Patreon itself. Lots of good stuff there. It's well worth like 10 cents a day or like 20 cents per live stream. And Patreon is the only reason that I can do this full time. Otherwise, I'd be in a 40-hour-a-week job, maybe just like live streaming once a week like I used to. With the support from you beautiful bastards, I can do 10 plus hours of live streaming a week and just eat, breathe, shower FPV. To bring you the best combos, the most testing, the most data, all that jazz. So thank you to everybody, as always, that has helped me on this journey for the last almost 4 years that I've been doing this. Over 1,000 live streams. It's just ridiculous. In the chat, Ryan Sadat says, I just built my Tree Topper AIO 575mm build, and I'm loving it, but I want more power. Want to stay 1S, but torn about losing the 1.5mm shafts for the insane Beta FPV 28,000 kV 802s or RCN Power 802 motors. The better bet, in my opinion, and the way to not lose the 1.5mm shafts would be to go to the Gep RC 1002 25,000s. They make more power than the Tree Toppers, even though they're a lower kV. They're a much bigger motor, 1002 versus 802. And so even though they're only 25,000 kV, the bigger stator allows it to actually turn the propeller up to a higher RPM and make more power than the Tree Toppers. The Tree Toppers are an example of how you can kind of take a smaller motor and push the kV through the roof. When the kV goes higher on a motor, the resistance goes down. But basically, in order to make the kV higher on a motor, you wind the copper less around the stator poles. And what that basically does is reduce the resistance of the motor, and that's what allows it to use more of the energy that's coming into it. And so the tree toppers are a great example of that. You will never, like the 33,000 kV, it'll never turn a 1.6 inch prop all the way up. But when you compare those 33,000 kV tree toppers to like a 28,000 kV or even a 30,000 kV Happy Model motor 802, the tree toppers will make more power. But when you compare them to a bigger statored motor, even though it's significantly less kV, it can actually push that propeller up to the higher RPM. And so you can get away with like going pretty nuts on the kV with a lot of these motors. At some point, though, you do hit a wall and you get into the world of like diminishing returns where the motor actually becomes a lot less efficient because you've wound it and set it up for such a high kV, but then you've put a draggy propeller on it that it has no chance, that the stator itself, the size of the motor, has no chance of turning that draggy of a propeller anywhere near its ceiling. That's a bad thing. And so you got to be careful. You can't just wind these motors for a billion kV and just, hey, we're good to go. You can push the kV a little bit farther than like you should and get a little bit of benefit. We see this in the 702s as well, on the 65mm tiny whoops with 1.2 inch props. Most of our 702s are over KV'd, and the motor will not spin to like its maximum RPM potential once you've got the propeller on it, but it will make more power than the slightly lesser KV motor. A long time ago, probably about a year and a half ago, Newbie Drones sent me a motor, and they didn't tell me what KV it was. And I put it onto one of the Hummingbirds that they'd sent me, and I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? And I guessed that it was like, and so Newbie Drone, RC and Power, Beta FPV, VCI, they all measure their KV in one way. Happy Model, Weebleed, Tiny Whoop, those motors are all, they measure the KV in a slightly different way. What's really annoying is that Happy Model did it first, and so like everybody else should have chosen the way that Happy Model measures KV, but they didn't. They chose this other way, and so now the long and short of this is that when you look at a Happy Model Weebleed Tiny Whoop motor, the KV number is going to be very high. For example, the 40,000 kV Weebleed motors make roughly the same amount of power as the 30,000 kV everybody else's motors, Beta FPV, VCI, RC and Power, Newbie Drone. And so the highest KV that we've seen from those other guys is, Beta FPV just did that, I think it's 36,000 kV, 702. This motor from Newbie Drone, who uses the same method of measuring KV as Beta FPV, it turned out to be over 40,000 kV. And, like, it was just absurd, and it was a perfect example of how you can't just go completely through the roof with the KV, because the runtime was, like, less than a minute. The power was absurd, but it like wasn't that much more absurd than these other like mega powerful motors. And it was like it was really hard to tune, and it was like oscillating all over the place, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And so yeah, you can go ham on KV, but if there's ever a motor that's like way higher than the others, it's probably not a good idea to go with that motor. Or if you're like looking to go from 3S to 4S, and you're wondering if you can stay with that same motor, like a motor that's meant for 3S, and now you're going to 4S. If it's a motor that's meant for 3S and it's not like one of the highest kV 3S motors, you're probably going to be okay. But if like it was already a gnarly motor on 3S, putting it onto 4S is probably going to be too much. So yeah, there you go. There's an answer to a question that nobody asked. Hail FPVR6 says, "What's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. Coming to Castle Crash this year. I am indeed. Looking forward to it. Castle Crash tickets are for sale. CastleCrash.org. Get your ass over there and come hang out. It's going to be a blast." Cjo says, "Is Ireland a country Joshua didn't seem to know?" Oh, did I miss a Joshua stream? God, he took that huge break live streaming, and now I'm not like... An alarm doesn't go off in my head Sundays and Mondays 2 hours before my stream.
Yeah, he was on earlier.
What happened with Ireland?
I have no idea. I didn't catch it either because, again, that part of my brain turned off when he stopped streaming regularly.
For real. All right, Ryan Sadat says, "By the way, I believe Beta FPV now makes the most powerful motors at every size for 1S with their 702, 36, look at that, I was right, 36,000 kV, 802, 28,000 kV, and 1002, 23. I doubt that their 1002 23s are more powerful than the GEP 25s, just because Beta FPV and GEP RC both use the same kV measuring method. The 802 28,000 kV, it would not surprise me if that's more powerful than the tree toppers. But yeah, the GEP RC motors are probably going to make a little bit more jam than the Beta FPV 1002 23s. But it's hard to tell. This is... yeah. There is little to no standardization in FPV, and it is absolutely maddening. But luckily there's some people as dumb as I am that are willing to test most of this stuff. Yuke says, "I put my Meteor 75 Pro 04 back to stock the other day and forgot how good it actually flies. Have the solid Module 8 mount on the way." Yeah, the Meteor 75 Pro non-04, it did blow me away. The extra 8 grams of 04, probably closer to 10 grams because they use a really heavy canopy with a nice soft mount setup, would impress me a lot less. But yeah, Meteor 75 Pro is an interesting build. The frame is like... So for those that don't know, when Beta FPV puts the word Pro after Meteor 65 or Meteor 75, what that means is that you're about to be annoyed. The reason you're about to be annoyed is that they've chosen a prop size that previously didn't exist. So you get to go buy new propellers and see which of these propellers are shittily balanced or somewhat decently balanced. And then it's just going to be, yeah, silly. And so the Meteor 65 Pro uses a 1.4 inch prop, regular 65 millimeter motor to motor tiny whoops use a 1.2 inch prop, regular 75 millimeter motor to motor tiny whoops use a 1.6 inch prop. The Meteor 75 Pro uses a 1.8 inch prop. So, you know, everything is annoying. And but the Meteor 75 Pro had a really good motor on it. The Beta FPV 1102 22,000 kV motor was really well matched to the 1.8 inch prop size, which kind of made up for the fact that the Meteor 75 Pro frame is very heavy. Nowadays, a better frame option is the Happy Model M80. It's much lighter, and it seems to be just as tough. Although it is set up... Forget I said that. That's only for 2S. The M80 frame is for 2S. The Meteor 75 Pro frame is what you would have to go with 1S. And so, yeah, but the Meteor 75 Pro is very decent on analog. Like I said, I'm sure it handles the 04 Pro better than any other 1S rig. But I was like just barely happy with it on analog. So adding 8, 9, 10 grams would probably, yeah, be a bit much. But yeah, lots of good tiny whoop formulas nowadays. It's not hard to build a rockin' tiny whoop if you listen to the right people. Drublick Mike says, it wasn't my shit flying causing the bumps at that race. Damn 04 Pro. Yeah. So let's dive into it. A couple days ago, videos started popping up here on YouTube with varying levels of clickbait about the 04 Pros getting worse and worse. One of the problems apparently with the 04 Pro is that when you put the ham unlock on it, and then you put it into race mode, if you're not on the right channel, it'll, and you have it set to 40 megabits per second, when you first arm it, it'll be at 40, but then if you fly far enough away and it goes 30, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, 22, 21, 20, 19, as soon as it gets below 20 megabits per second, it's stuck there. It'll never go back up to 40. Supposedly that's because of the ham file, and you need to be on a specific channel. Who cares about race mode? It doesn't. There's no range. It's not really for freestyle. It's kind of only for racing, and so whatever. And if you choose the right channel, it's not an issue. You're fine. The more concerning issue is surrounding the global chip shortage caused by, in part, AI farms and all that shit eating up all the chips, caused by greed. How about that? There we go. That's way more accurate. And so the good gyros are just not available, is the long and short of it. And so shittier gyros are needing to be used now, or else things aren't going to get made. Or, I don't know, maybe the good gyros are just more expensive and everybody wants money because money, you greedy fat fucks. That was a good one. That's a good soundbite. That'll be in the version 3 sound pack for sure. If you want your transmitter to curse at you, one of the perks of joining my Patreon is sound packs. There are 2 full CiottiFPV sound packs, so all of the horrible, insane things that I say can come out of your radio when you disarm and arm and crash and all that stuff, and it's pretty funny if I'm honest here. But DJI is now putting the same gyro that we've been bashing our faces into for the last couple of weeks, that's on the 04 Lite, into the 04 Pro. And go figure, the 04 Pro is now having all the same problems that we've been having with the 04 Lite, which is basically that it's recording bad gyro data when the vibrations are too intense. For the past 2+ weeks, okay, so 3 weeks ago, my partner Maggie and I went to Portland and had an unbelievable couple of days there. What a town. I would love to move there someday, but realistically, that's looking pretty tough. Maggie's got some pretty serious roots here in Georgia, and there's kids involved, and it's going to be tough. But boy, did I ever, and she did too, fall in love with that town. While we were there, I brought 3 drones. A 2-inch 04 Lite carrying setup in this frame. This is the Sub 250G FPV Baby Turtle 2-inch Pro frame, which unfortunately you can't get anymore, but you can get the Bando version of this frame, which is almost certainly just as good. And then I brought 2 tiny whoops with me, both with 04 Lite. 04 Lite, everything that I brought is on hard-mounted cameras. And I brought them to have fun. I did not bring them to make a gnarly cinematic edit or anything like that. I brought them just to have fun when Maggie was at the conference, which was the reason she was going, public health conference. And so I would have something to do. And so I was just, you know, take it out, rip it around, whatever, have a good time. Maybe do like a freestyle edit, no gyro flow, no rock steady, none of that nonsense, right? What I ended up doing was a bunch of like really cool, actually cinematic flying, because I've been a professional cinematic FPV pilot for the past 4+ years. Go figure. You know, it's not all that I did, but like some of the flying that I did was like really, really cool because there's some beautiful stuff to fly around in Portland. And so when I got back, like as a joke, I dropped one of the files from the open prop 2-inch rig, 2S 2-inch, by the way, sub 100 grams all up. I dropped one of the files where I flew out to this beautiful rock that's out in the surf in the ocean, and dove down the front of it while there were 2 bald eagles sitting on the top. And just for fun, just to see, I dropped it into gyro flow, and like 90% of the flight footage was able to be really nicely stabilized by gyro flow. I was flying on the beach, so of course there was a shitload of wind. It's a sub 100 gram little tiny quad, and so it was getting pushed around by the wind quite a bit. But I was relatively low throttle for the majority of that flying, and that allowed gyro flow. Now I figured this out. At the time I didn't realize it, but that allowed gyro flow to stabilize it really well. There were a couple of moments where gyro flow would freak out and have these massive jitters, which were way more obnoxious than the raw flight footage. And so what I've actually done since then is I made a little edit, and what I did in the edit is I took the gyro flow footage and the raw footage, and I just lined them up perfectly, and I put the gyro flow footage on top so that that's the main thing because it looked so goddamn good. And then any time where the gyro flow footage would get garbage data from the gyro or alias data from the gyro, and it would freak out and look really horrible, I would cut that part of the footage out, and that would let the raw footage play. And so in this little edit that I did that Patreons have access to, this is, you know, a perfect example of something that you get by spending $3 whole a month so that I can keep doing this. Patreons have access to this video, and like it's funny, like it and when the gyro footage is playing, I have the little gyro flow logo in the corner to let you know. It's the video ended up being like some kind of a weird commercial for gyro flow because like it looks really good, and like when the gyro flow footage is playing, it looks beautifully smooth, and then every once in a while the raw footage comes on, you can see me getting pushed around by the wind. And so like you know, of course in the description I explain this, but like if somebody just watched it, they'd be like, wow, gyro flow is the best. But what I was actually doing is cutting out the garbage. If I'd done the editing in the reverse, it's funny, right now it is a commercial for gyro flow. If I reversed it, it would convince everyone not to use gyro flow because all the stuff that I cut out is this like horrible jittering that most of you that have been following the 04 Pro situation in the last 48 hours are now seeing all over the place. And so when I got back from that trip 3-ish weeks ago, and I saw how good you know, how much potential this had, I've been on a bit of a tirade to kind of figure out how the hell do we make it even better? How do we get... And so here's the deal, though. This is a hard-mounted camera. This is a freestyle rig. This is in no way a cinematic rig. This is meant to be infinitely lightweight, super quiet, super fun, super safe. And that's exactly what it is. You couldn't hurt a fly with this. And so I've been railing this around all over the place. People smile and laugh and come talk to me and like celebrate it. They love it. They throw dollar bills at me. It's crazy. It's great. You got to build one of these. But I'd kind of like realized the potential of it from like a cinematic standpoint, and I'm like, well, shit, if we can have something like this that you can do cinematic stuff, because 04 Lite is 4K 60, or better yet 50, or 1080 120, better yet 100 for lower latency in both cases. Yeah, what a time to be alive, right? Let's figure that out. Let's try to get this to be as cinematic as possible. And so since then, I have tested, and so it's the electronics package is actually over here. This is the next frame that I'm testing. I have now moved this 04 Lite and this Flywoo AIO into, this is the 4th frame that I've tried it in. I have tried 5 different sets of motors, 4 or 5 different sets of motors, and I've tried like 10 or 11 or 12 different sets of propellers. I've done black box logs with everything. I've taken the onboard 4K flight footage off of it, and I've taken the goggle DVR off of it so that I can look at battery voltage, throttle percentage, RPM from the DVR on the goggles. I've been putting all of the onboard 4K footage into gyro flow so that we can see how often it freaks out and at what throttle values it freaks out. I've done a bunch of experiments where I change the throttle limiting and drop the throttle limiting down to 50%, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, and 100 to see at how, because what I've realized is that at low throttle values, gyro flow is totally cool. It's not until you get up into the high throttle that gyro flow starts freaking out. And so by adding throttle limiting, I can fly around and just hammer full throttle. And if the throttle limiting is at 55% and I'm flying it around hammering full throttle, and then I dump it into gyro flow and there are no issues, I know that 55%, like kind of spoiling the surprise, but that's about it. 55% on this particular setup is about the max that you can get before gyro flow starts to go nuts. And I'm sure there's some other stuff that I've forgotten about as well. But that's been the testing that's kind of been going on over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. We've found a bunch of propellers that are significantly better balanced than others. We've found that for some very strange reason, and I'm going to be backing that up with this next round of testing in this 2.5-inch sub 250 GFPV Bando turtle frame. We've figured out so far that 2-inch does better than 2.5. No idea why, but it does. And yeah, we've made some real sort of I mean, the main discovery has been that if you stay low in the throttle, all is well. Like if you stay below 50% throttle on a similar setup to this, gyro flow will work pretty well. It almost never freaks out and gets bad gyro data when you're in the lower throttle. I would not recommend using throttle limiting to do that, because flying around with your throttle capped at 55% is kind of sketchy. Like you're going to come down the bottom of a dive, you're going to go full throttle, and you're going to have to hang full throttle for like a full second for it not to bang into the ground. A better bet is going to be to maybe motor limit down a little bit, or maybe don't motor limit at all and just fly as gentle as you possibly can. And so, yeah, we've learned a lot. Also, there have been some motors that have been better balanced than some other motors. And so we've learned a lot. And yeah, like I said, if you have a build that's nice and clean, motors that aren't all banged up, propellers that are fresh, you're using one of the propellers that we've shown in black box logs are better balanced than another. If your build is nice and tight and clean, if you don't have loose screws, if you don't have delaminated arms, you can have something like this that if you keep it under 50% throttle, you can have some incredible cinematic footage in 4K 50 or 60, but at the same time freestyle the living shit out of it. When you start freestyling it hard, you're going to start crashing and you're going to bang up your motors and props. So you might want to like have a set of motors that's clean. I've been building these with the motor plugs because on 2S the motor plugs are actually less of a bottleneck. And with how much testing I do, it just would be a complete nightmare to be, desoldering and resoldering, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different sets of motors. I've got a bunch more motors to test here too on the 2.5-inch setups. Unfortunately, some of them are direct solder only, so that's going to be annoying. But yeah, this is my job, so I'll do it. And so yeah, we've learned an awful lot, and it's. I had my suspicions that the 04 Lite was using a different gyro than the 04 Pro. I'd also previously talked about like maybe not, because mass damping is a real thing. The heavier something is, the less it's going to be affected by vibrations. And so when we do a build with the 04 Pro, it is always a heavier build than this, because the 04 Pro is like 4 times as heavy as the 04 Lite. The 04 Lite is only 8 grams for the camera and VTX. The 04 Pro is 30 something, I believe it is. But yeah, it's like 4 times as heavy. And so this would technically be able to lift this up if there was a way to mount it, which there isn't, but it would fly like a bag of smashed assholes, right? And so we don't do that. Whenever we do 04 Pro builds, they're like 2.5 inches, big motors, big props at the minimum, or 3 or 5-inch rigs, right? And so with those much heavier builds, the vibrations are not going to be as evident because it's so heavy, right? You drive down the road in a 6,000-pound SUV, and then you drive down the road in a 2,000-pound Miata. Which one do you think is going to handle the bumps better, right? A stock Miata has really soft suspension. You can't use the argument, oh, well, the Miata's, going to have mega spring rates. No. Stock Miatas have hilariously soft suspension, but it doesn't matter because the car is 2,000 pounds, and so it bangs into every single pothole and bump like something that bangs into something hard. Whereas the 6,000-pound SUV glides over the bumps because it's so goddamn heavy. And so we talked about that, like maybe they do have the same gyro, but with all of this 04 Pro insanity now, I think it was in Mads Tech's video, which you should watch. Mads Tech's video has the most information and the least clickbait and just sensationalism for the sake of getting views. And so go watch Ian's video. It's fantastic. And in there, he talks about how the 04 Lite has always had this one gyro and the 04 Pro has now always had this other gyro. Go figure, the 04 Pro got the better gyro. But now, as of this year, it looks like, because of the chip shortage, it seems like DJI either has to or can't afford to. I'm sure they can afford to, but they don't want to afford to put the better previous 04 Pro gyro into it anymore. And so now the 04 Pros that you're getting from this year, it looks like, have the same gyro that's in the 04 Lite. This is my brand new 04 Air Unit Pro that I took the thumbnail picture with, that almost certainly has that new gyro. Luckily, this is going into a freestyle rig, a 3.5-inch freestyle Quadmula Siren A frame build with big old 1804s. And so I don't care. I'm fine, because I'm never going to... Freestyle should never be stabilized unless, you like that sort of thing. Don't like that sort of thing. It's bad. And so I'm actually kind of okay with this. Would I like to be able to, if I flew that thing in a cinematic scenario, put it in gyro flow and have it work? Of course. But it's not it doesn't seem to be every single 04 Pro, which is the best thing about Mads Tech's video is that he just recently reviewed the 4S 2-inch and 3S 2.5-inch Flywoo open prop freestyle-ish builds, which both have the new version of the 04 Air Unit Pro with the new worse gyro, and his flight footage went through gyro flow completely fine and didn't have any nonsense. I actually, when he put that review out, I commented on the video and I said, yo, do you remember if you went full throttle at any point? Because his flying was like very smooth and like flying around the beautiful areas around him. And he didn't remember, and we kind of talked back and forth about like what I've been up to lately. And so maybe he was just flying kind of chill. Also, those rigs, that frame that he was flying has a really nice camera cage setup that's on rubber grommets. And so those rigs have a fully soft-mounted 04 Lite and 04 Pro in them. And the soft mounting is super important. When I got about a week into the testing that I've been doing, I went over to the GyroFlow Discord and I said, hey, here's a file that I've been trying to run through GyroFlow. It's a hard-mounted camera. I know that we're not supposed to be able to do that and have GyroFlow work, but here's the file. Look how good of a job it did, but there's only a couple of, like, unfortunately really important moments where it freaks out. Is there any hope? Probably not, but, you know, you guys are the pros. And the response that I got from GyroFlow was simply, you can't expect GyroFlow to work with a hard-mounted camera. And that was that. And I was like, okay, sure. They're you know, A, there's nothing that can be done. B, like, you know, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking in the chat about all this stuff. And the smartest people have basically said that the problem is aliasing. I don't necessarily know what that means, but what I think is basically happening, and maybe a different name for that, is clipping. And like, it doesn't really matter what's happening. It's just bad gyro data. The gyro in the camera is essentially like maxing out. It's not able to provide good data to GyroFlow. And so now GyroFlow is getting bad, incorrect data. And GyroFlow's job is to move the cropped in image around according to the gyro data. And so when it's moving shit around and then there's bad gyro data, it has no idea what to do, so it freaks out. And that's what we're seeing. And so it doesn't really make any sense that there's going to be a fix for that, right? Like, there's just shit. Maybe there will be someday. One of the things that's been talked about is you can put a low-pass filter on in GyroFlow. We've tried that live on stream, actually. The default low-pass filter is 50 hertz, and when you turn that on, it doesn't do anything. It accomplishes nothing. GyroFlow just chimed in now that this has become a bigger issue, and they said, hey, if you put a 5 hertz, if you set that low-pass filter to 5 hertz, it'll work, which I've done, and absolutely, it does work, but then GyroFlow doesn't really do much of anything. It doesn't really stabilize anymore. And so, sure, you can put a low-pass filter at 5 hertz, and it gets rid of the nasty insanity, but then your image is bouncing around unless it was already super smooth. If what you're gyroflowing is already like barely in need of gyroflow, it's okay. But for example, the flight footage of me on the beach where I'm getting hit by the wind, it's as if gyroflow is not even on. And I've heard that from multiple people too, is that when they put that 5 hertz low pass filter on, gyroflow no longer does anything. And so there's not a solution.
I wonder if you can try to step it between, try to step it between the 5 and the 50, the default 50 and the recommended 5, and see if you can at least get the majority of them out.
Yeah, or run it through twice. Run it through once at 5.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then run it through again without the low pass filter on, and then cut in between them. I can almost guarantee you that cutting in between them, you're going to be able to see it. You're going to, but like what you can do is use those cuts to your advantage. Run it through twice. I think the absolute best case scenario right now is you run it through twice, and you get one file where the majority of the time, with no low pass filter, where the majority of the time that you're under 50% throttle, it's butter smooth. And then in those moments where it freaks out, you put a creative cut in with the music, and then you cut to the 5 hertz. But like, that's basically what I already did, right? Like that's pretty much exactly what I did by just putting the raw flight footage in there, because with that low pass filter at 5 hertz, it looks like you didn't stabilize it. It is doing a little bit. Like, I might as well show you. It is definitely doing something, but it's not doing nearly enough. And so here you go. So if I go to, where the hell is the, let's just do this. 2026, and then we've got Portland, and we've got 2-inch turtle, and so this is the flight file. And so when I drop this in here, it's probably still going to have that 5 hertz. Nope, it turned off the low pass filter. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. What you're going to see now is gyro flow kicking ass until I go to until I stab the throttle. And unfortunately, I stabbed the throttle at the worst possible time, of course. But you'll see a couple moments here where it kind of freaks out. Beautifully smooth, right? Until it's coming up. It's coming up. I guess it's the other run where it's doing it on the way up. There, it's starting to do it. And now you'll see, there it goes, right? And so that's bad gyro data. I am too high in the throttle. Here come the bald eagles sitting on the top of the rock. And then it does it nasty up in here. And so, yeah, there it is. Right? And so if I go back right to one of the spots, so here's one of the worst spots with it doing it. All right, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to turn the low pass filter on. I'm going to leave it at default at 50. And we're going to hit play. And you're going to see it's still doing it, right? So it's still got the problem. So let's take the 0 off and do a 5 hertz low pass filter. That's now on. It's unbelievable how quick gyroflow reacts to changes. And so now watch, ready? That shit's not gone, but look at it bobbling around, right? And so now this is as if the smoothing has been turned off almost. Not quite. We can see the not quite by hitting this little button here, stabilization overview. This is what gyroflow is doing. And so if I go back a little bit more, and I'm going to zoom for you guys. If you look up here, gyroflow is working. It is doing something, but it's just not doing enough. That low pass filter is preventing it from doing enough to actually stabilize this footage. If I pull up a regular file, and so now for the record, this is all now true with these new 04 Pros, unless they can magically firmware it out, which I don't think so, because this is a hardware problem, but you never know. If I go to some of this testing flight footage that I've been doing, where I am specifically trying to make this behavior happen so that I can see when it happens to try to learn about what's going on here. So I'll go to the 2.5-inch prop testing, because this is where it was kind of the worst. So we've got the Gep RC 1202.5s. These are the best motors that I've found so far. And then we're going to go here. And so these are the HQT 2.5 by 1.9 by 3 propellers. These are some of the best propellers that I've found on 2.5. If we come in here, and I always go up here and hammer full throttle, and that's Why is that not triggering it? Because the low pass filter is still on. So as you can see there, the low pass filter was working. The low pass filter is now off. Watch this. Okay, so the low pass filter absolutely does work. This is me flying in front of the house with no wind whatsoever. And this rig flies really clean. And so what's actually kind of interesting is if I turn the low pass filter back on and we just let this play. Now, yeah, you can still see it moving around. I was going to say this will probably be totally fine, but I can still see it wobbling around. So yeah, it's not really a solution. Like this is, yeah, it's wobbling around again. It just that aggressive of a low pass filter kills gyroflow's ability to function. At which point, don't use gyroflow because it's just cropping in, and just let the raw footage fly, right? Yeah, that's not great. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. The solution at the moment is to try a bunch of different propellers, black box log them, figure out which ones are the best balanced, focus on your build to make sure it is tight, check your motors, make sure they're as well balanced as possible, make sure the shafts aren't bent, have the cleanest build you possibly can. Like for sure, if you want it to work, soft mount the shit out of your flight camera and like really look at that soft mounting and make sure that it's as good as possible, and then stay as low in the throttle as you possibly can. And if you do all of those things, you will probably be in a situation like Mads Tech, like Ian, where he flew a few batteries on these flywoo rigs and they were completely fine. They went through gyroflow with no problems at all. But if you start hammering full throttle, or if you're on a hard-mounted camera, or if your builds are ugly, or if your motors are banged up, or if you're using one of the many propellers that are just straight up not balanced right out of the bag, you're going to have issues. And there is no software fix. And I do not think that there will be a software fix, because what's gyroflow supposed to do? Like, best case scenario, gyroflow can figure out a way of turning itself off right before the bad data occurs. So like that's best case scenario. And in that scenario, you're going to go from like perfectly stabilized video to not stabilized video, and that's going to be pretty obvious. So yeah, it's still, I'm actually weirdly thrilled that this is happening, because I was like the lone idiot in the forest screaming like, there's so much potential to gyroflow with this, please help me. And now all of a sudden the entire FPV community is screaming at the top of their lungs, fix this, everyone. And so this will benefit all of us 04 Lite users now that the 04 Pro crowd has been drug into this, and now that a bunch of people have made incredibly clickbaity thumbnails and videos and stuff like that. So that's where we are. Thoughts, Kevin?
A few.
Shoot.
Oh my God. I didn't want to interrupt your delicious
Massive
run of
rant,
information
yeah.
there. And massive rant. Yeah. So, we've been talking about the like DJI potentially being caused by shortage of MEMS, which are the things that, if you don't know, they're the things that go in the gyro. I wonder if this is going to come for our flight controller gyros too.
Is. Yeah, so it already is. Beta FPV is already using worse gyros, and there's a chunk of red text somewhere on their website. I just scrolled past this. I don't know if it was in our Discord or what, but yeah, it's already coming for us.
Cool.
So that'll be great. That surely won't be a nightmare.
So stock up on the good gyros while you can. It's MPU 6000 all over again.
It is indeed.
The second,
Go ahead.
my second thought is, I wonder if this is that DJI has the internal filters on the gyro set incorrectly. You know how the BMI 270 gyro, it took, was it Mark Spatz or Chris Rosser reaching out to Betaflight developers and doing some investigation on their own to figure out exactly what the code was required to tell the gyro to do the right thing so that Betaflight could deal with it. You remember this?
Right. Yep.
I wonder if there's a similar thing going on here with that gyro that they're using in a Lite and some of the pros.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Because then there's potential of it actually getting fixed.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
unfortunately, for everybody that has these things right now, it means, oops, all your footage to this point is probably not salvageable. Maybe somebody can figure out a magic fix for it, write in a script or a gyro flow plugin or something. But for the time being, like, the footage is not usable for professional stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's there's just bad data in there, so that when you gotta stabilize it once, and you gotta deliver the stabilized footage and the raw footage and explain this to your clients. Good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you tried Rocksteady on this file? Can you use Rocksteady on this file?
No, you have to turn that on in camera, but Rocksteady is the easiest way to see this happening. Anybody with an 04 Lite or an 04 Pro can just turn Rocksteady on and watch this happen in real time. I've only turned Rocksteady on like once, I think, when I was troubleshooting the soft mounting on the Beta FPV canopy. And I was like, ooh, I kept bouncing back and forth, like pulling the footage off, running it through GyroFlow. And I was like, this workflow sucks. And then I was like, wait a second, can't I just turn Rocksteady on to see it happening live? And sure enough, yeah, when the gyro data goes off the rails, Rocksteady doesn't know what to do either, just like GyroFlow. And so it's super obvious. So yeah, you can that's the best way. That's the best way to dial in your soft mounting, your props, your motors, your whatever. You can literally see it happening live by just turning Rocksteady on.
So the only hope I am hopeful that if this is either a hardware problem or something that is fixable with firmware, that DJI will go, oops, our bad.
Right.
But we'll see if that happens with a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, right. For sure. So, happy days are here again. Any other thoughts, Kevin?
Oh, this all sucks.
Yeah, it does indeed. This will make you feel better. Here's my story time. I screwed up a shitload of this testing. When the first round of testing that I did on the 2-inch setup, I tried a few different motors, tons of different propellers, whole bunch of stuff. And then the last thing that I did, because by the end of that first round of testing, what I realized is that high throttle is what causes GyroFlow to freak out. What I think is going on is that up high throttle, the intensity, I think this is an issue. The reason why I think it's like a clipping issue is that the more intense the shake, the really intense shakes are what cause the gyro data to go bad. So your gyro, the quad's sitting on the ground, and so the gyro is this. You take off, instantly the gyro starts doing this. Regardless of how clean your motors, your props, your frame, it doesn't matter. These are vibration machines, okay? And so as soon as you take off, it's starting to do this. Gyros all have a maximum amount of G-force that they can measure before they clip. And when they clip, a nice uniform wave, which is what vibrations always look like, When it clips, it goes and it hits a brick wall, and then it just traces straight across, and then it comes down instead of going up high enough. And so this is something that happened back in the race flight days. This has happened a bunch of times with flight controllers where they use the wrong gyro that can't measure a high enough amount of intensity to the motions, to the vibrations, to the G-force, and it clips. And when it clips, it's bad data. The PID loop doesn't know what to do. Gyroflow doesn't know what to do. Rocksteady doesn't know what to do, and you get bad things happening. And so that is basically what's going on here, is that we're exceeding the gyro's ability to measure the motion, and it just it can't measure any farther. And so when I realized that that's what was going on, when I would go into high throttle, when you go to high throttle, everything starts jamming around harder, right? Like, yes, the frequency goes up as the RPM goes up. At low RPM, the vibrations are going to look like this. As the RPM increases, the vibrations are going to increase, right? Out of all propellers are at least a little bit out of balance, and so you spin it around slowly, and it shakes slowly. You spin it around fast, it shakes really fast. That the hertz go up. That's what hertz are. 100 hertz is 100 times per second. 1,000 hertz is 1,000 times per second. And so what I pretty quickly realized is that up at high throttle, where, yes, the frequency increases, but also the intensity increases, right? You're putting more energy in, literal energy, battery power. It's making more power. The vibrations are happening harder. That's where this issue starts. And so that supports the fact that it's clipping. It's shaking too hard. The intensity is getting too high, and it can't measure anymore. That's also the only possible explanation that I have so far for why on the 2-inch frames it's better. The gyro flow is working better than on the 2.5-inch frames. The only thing I can think of, and this was a major clue, is that on the 2.5-inch builds, we're getting more power. We have bigger props that are making more power. Also, we have longer blades on the propellers, and the longer blades are able to deflect more and cause a harder vibration. The gyro on the flight controller is totally cool with it, and this rig flies beautiful on the 2.5, on the 2. It doesn't matter. This rig, and when you look at the black box logs, they are dead clean after the filters come through. So, like, there are gyros that are easily able to handle this. The gyro on the 04 Lite and now on the 04 Pro are not one of the gyros that can handle the intensity of the vibrations here. What I was thinking and what I was hoping when I switched it from the 2-inch frame to the 2.5-inch frame initially is that, okay, so when I go over 50% throttle on the 2-inch frame, all hell breaks loose. Well, cool. When I get to the 2.5-inch frame, all the RPMs will come down, all the frequencies will come down, and I'll be able to go up to 70% throttle because the bigger propellers will spin slower but still make the same amount of power. And the opposite happened. And the 2.5-inch setup was worse. And so that's what has kind of led me down the road of like, okay, it's not about the frequency. It's not about high frequencies being a problem. It's the intensity. And so like when you're looking at a black box log, you know, how high up not the water, well, on the waterfall, it's how white it is. The waterfall chart, it goes from black to red to white. The whiter it is, the more intensity it is. On the regular throttle versus frequency graph, it's how high that goes. It goes from green to orange to red. And so if you're up in the red where the intensity is really high, that's kind of the issue. And so when I was finishing up with the first round of testing on the 2-inch rig, the last thing that I did was go, okay, cool. So it seems like high throttle is when these problems start. I'm going to put a throttle limit on here, and then I'll be totally fine. And also the throttle limit, like up until that point, it was like, yeah, it feels like when I'm sort of above 50% throttle, all hell breaks loose. But like, I didn't know, right? Like I'm in the goggles, I can't look down at the controller. Like, yeah, I have the throttle value in the OSD, but I really can't be looking over at it. And so what I realized is like, well, shit, I can just throttle limit down to 50%. And then when I go full throttle, I only have 50%. So I'll just fly around, use full throttle. If gyro flow goes nuts, I know what's going on. And so I spent an hour trying 50% throttle, 55, 60, 65, like I was saying earlier. And the last throttle percentage that I tried was 80. And so I flew it around 80% throttle. Okay, great. Came inside, put everything in. I don't need to try 90. It's so bad with it at 80 that I'm good to go. And that's where the throttle limiting stayed. And so I then tested the 2.5-inch frame with a shitload of different 2.5-inch props, 3 different motors. Went back to the Max Frames M2 2-inch frame, tried a bunch of different propellers on that. And what's funny is, lately, I've been thinking, you know, I seem to remember this thing making more power. Like, I remember these 1202.5s, when I'd previously run them, making like crazy fucking power. And then like when it was in the 2.5-inch build, I was like, it makes sense. These are just a little bit too small of a motor for a 2.5-inch prop. I get it. But then like when I moved into the Max Frames, I was like, man, I remember this having more power. And then when I was looking at like the RPM, the maximum RPM, I was like, the max RPM looks a little bit low. That's weird. And then the really embarrassing thing, and on yesterday's live stream, our resident black box ninja in our little CiottiFPV universe here is Brandon's Baked Beans. And whenever he's in the chat and I have black box questions, I've been doing my best to learn black box over the last couple months. Brandon's been a massive help, but he is still 10,000 light years beyond me. He was in the chat yesterday, but then he left. And of course, as soon as he leaves, I was like, oh, by the way, Brandon, a whole bunch of these logs are only showing waterfall, or only showing data up to like 80%. Like, what's going on with that? I'm sure everything's fine because it's like all of the logs. It wasn't all of the logs. It was just all of the most recent logs. And so here's what that's been looking like. So if we go here, the analyzer, and then noise plots, and then we open the analyzer, you don't see it in here. This does not show us throttle percentage. This just shows us the intensity of the vibrations vertically, and then the frequency of the vibrations left to right. It's only on the waterfall graph here, that's opening up now, where you get to see the throttle percentages. And would you look at that? There's nothing above 80%. And all of these logs from the 2.5-inch motor testing and from the 2-inch motor testing on the new frame, there's nothing above 80%. But then if I go back to the original round of testing that I did, the full original round of testing that I did before I tried the motor limiting as like the last ditch effort to gather some data. If you look at these files, holy shit, look at that. Data up above 80%.
You see how to guess.
So,
guess what?
There you go. What's that?
Guess what? The Beans is in the chat.
Oh, he is? Nice. What's up, Brandon? Luckily, it doesn't matter at all. Nothing interesting happens above 80%. It has nothing to do with our problem. The biggest issue with this is that what's really wild is that, again, the gyro flow freaking out, the gyro clipping issue happens at high throttle. I went from the 2-inch build at 100% throttle. All of the testing I did until the very last second was with 100% throttle set up on this. And so that was my baseline. And I was like, okay, cool. feels like over 50-60% throttle, that's when all hell breaks loose. The last thing I did is scale the throttle down. Well, then I took that electronics package with an 80% throttle scale and I put it into the 2.5-inch frame. And even with an 80% throttle scale, it was noticeably worse on the 2.5-inch frame. And then I put it back into another 2-inch frame and it was noticeably better. And so the only thing that's gotten screwed up here is the comparison of the sub 250 GFPV Baby Turtle Pro 2-inch frame, which you can't even get anymore, but you can get the Bando version and it should be just as good. The comparison of this frame to the Max M2 frame is wrong, because on the Max frame I was motor limited down to 80%, and on this I was at 100%. And so on this frame it was worse. Like, all of the testing that I've done has actually benefited from that throttle limit, because the throttle limit has pulled the RPMs down and pulled that intensity down. So it has seemed like things have been better than they actually are. And the because of how I tested 2-inch and then 2.5 and then back to 2, I haven't made a lot of comparisons between the Max frames and the Baby Turtle frame, but any comparisons that I have made have been worse on this frame, because this frame I had at 100%. And so, but like I said, I haven't made many comparisons between the two frames, and so we're actually kind of okay. But boy, did I feel like an asshole earlier today when, and so today what I did is I was like, cool, I'm gonna do that throttle scale test again, but on the Max frames, because ever since then I've realized like the Emax Avan 2-inch props are better balanced. And the Gep RC 1202.5 motors are really well balanced. I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Maybe I can push it up to 70% and still get a clean file. And I go out on the front porch and I go into the OSD where I did the throttle limiting, and I scroll down to throttle limiting, and there it fucking is, 80% throttle scale. And I'm like, oh, fuck. For the last like week and a half, everything I've been doing has been at 80% throttle. So the other thing is that any talks of the maximum RPM have been off a little bit from that original round of testing. But the way that I've been doing this testing, we've been comparing stuff like right now. Like, I'll run 4 different 2-inch propellers, and then we'll compare all 4 of them. And so all 4 of those were all on 80% motor scaling. And so to some extent, the testing has kind of been okay, but the problem is a propeller that's really pitchy with an 80% throttle scale will perform better, and it'll perform closer to a propeller that's less pitchy and or more aerodynamic. And so I actually do need to repeat some of this testing, because on yesterday's live stream, we looked at the 4 best 2-inch propellers. 2 of those are very pitchy, 2 of them are significantly less pitchy, and they all performed really close together. I think now that I'm back up to 100%, we're going to see a bigger separation between these propellers. And so, yeah, some of the testing does need to get redone. But to be honest, the Emax props are so much better balanced that, like, if any of this concerns you, you should just run that propeller. It looks like the other propellers perform good enough where you're fine running them too. We're talking about GemFan 2023, HQT 2x2x3, HQ 2x2.2x3. That HQT 2x2.2x3 is the main offender here. It's got a massive blade on it. It looks like a fucking oar for a boat, and it's really angled. And so that propeller is probably going to suffer the worst from me not realizing I had that 80% motor scale on there. But yeah, if you ever are going to use motor scaling, be that inside of Betaflight or you can actually set your knobs up to be to have motor scaling on them, which is really slick, and it's kind of the only use for these knobs. If you're ever going to use motor scaling, first of all, I guarantee you that you're going to forget to change it back, because in the last 10 plus years of flying, I shit you not, every single time I have used motor scaling, I have forgot to turn it off. And then the next time I go out to fly, or the next battery that I fly, or maybe the next 10 batteries that I fly, because I'm an idiot, I'm just like, why is this bad? Where has all the power gone? I've gone multiple days. What the worst time it happened, I went multiple days of flying thinking that everything was broken. And then when I finally like stopped and I was like, hold on, just let me think for a second. And I went, this is happening to every single one of my builds. So it has to be in the transmitter. And this is when I had first set up this knob for throttle limiting. And then so I'll never forget, like, I grabbed the transmitter and I just looked at it. And I kind of looked around the transmitter, and then when I looked at the knob and visibly saw the knob turned down, right, because it's got the little fucking hash mark on it, I went, oh yeah, right, you're a dumb person. I'd forgotten for a minute that I was a dumb person. So yeah, there you go. There's my rant. There's my kind of screw up. And so now we're on 100%, which is where it should be anyway. If you want to get clean cinematic footage from a hard-mounted 04 Lite, or now it seems like 04 Pro, stay out of the throttle. Stay as low throttle as you possibly can. There is going to be that is not like the end-all be-all solution, though, because if you're flying in the wind is going to hit the quad hard, and the wind can very easily put enough intensity into the motion of the quad to clip the gyro. And so, yeah, just not using a lot of throttle is not the answer. The answer is DJI putting a good gyro back onto these things, or GyroFlow magically figuring out how to deal with this, or DJI magically figuring out how to deal with this, which I'm not super confident is going to happen, but we'll cross our fingers. Thoughts, Kevin? Call me a dum-dum.
You're a dum-dum, but only because you asked.
Gangrene now says, I just so happened to mention... Oh, no, we got that. Ryan Sadat says, by the way, just received my Etsy order. Thanks for the stablant and for feeding the insatiable appetite for my whoops for the newbie-driven foam pads. You're welcome, brother. Ryan Sadat says, Weebly is one of the biggest forces for good in our hobby, specifically for whoops. I try to order whenever I can from them. Zotek is an amazing guy and works very hard. Indeed, all true things. He also says, we appreciate you and the work that you do, sir. Thank you, man. See Joe with a $4.99 super chat. He says, had the Bentley and the car show on my campus. I'll post the pics in Discord. Very cool. See Joe lost his mind at some point and decided to restore a Bentley. And so, you know, whenever you don't see him in chat, he's in the garage punching metal. I do not miss working on cars as my main hobby. Working on them was never my main hobby. My main hobby was driving them and being an instructor. But I did do quite a bit of work on my own cars because I refused to pay someone else to. So
what you're saying is that driving cars for a hobby is much like flying drones for a hobby. The part that you hate is fixing it.
Yeah, it's way worse, and it's way worse. Cars as a hobby, when you're not independently wealthy, cars as a hobby is brutal. It's fun for a while, but it is, no matter what, so much more expensive than FPV. One of the main reasons that I got into FPV was I couldn't afford to be into cars anymore, and I was into autocross, which is the cheapest form of motorsport by like a fucking mile. But still, like, no matter what with cars, it's just absurd money. Ryan Sadat says, thanks for the Motor KV explanation. I didn't know that. He also says, yeah, going from Air 75 Champion / race to the Tree Toppers was surprising power-wise, but I do have the feeling the Tree Toppers make less raw power because my build isn't much heavier. Yeah, they make good power. They probably make about as much power as you would want from an 802 before it's going to start to get too hot. Cjo says it's about halfway through the stream that he asks if Ireland is a country, then tries to talk about the UK. That's crazy. Ryan says, sorry I missed the 1102 25,000 from Beta FPV. The ones you said suddenly felt more powerful. Those are the ones I said tied with the Gep RC. Gotcha. Ryan says that with a $1.99 super chat. He says, small thank you for so many questions. Cjo says about 48 minutes into the stream. I might check that out after. Depending on how tired I am after this live stream, I might check that out. Uke says, CiottiFPV and gang, red dot Weebleed motors spin what direction? I forget. Red dots on 1 and 4. That's the easiest way to remember it. I don't even know what direction they spin. What's
it also depends on whether you're running
props in.
Props in or props out. Yeah.
So red dot is clockwise. Red dot is clockwise. No, counter. Yes, clockwise. Red dot is clockwise. So props in, motor 1 and 4 is red dot. Only the true hardcore nerds get this conversation right now. Jamie Flies FPV says, hi friends in CiottiFPV. Kevin Smith says, Maine or Oregon? Oregon. Nothing wrong with Portland, Maine. But yeah, Portland, Oregon is somewhere that I would absolutely love to live, but we can't always get what we want. Striker says, what's up? He says, can you give me the rundown on the 2-inch frames? Want to grab one to build an analog basher. I want maximum slidiness and best possible durability. They all seem really good. Close your eyes and point. You'll be totally fine. This one is no longer available on CNC drones for some reason. I haven't tried the Bando version of this. I'm sure it's really good though. The Max Frames M2 has been great. There is a frame resonance on roll, but the filters eat it up. And so yeah, close your eyes and point. They're both really good. This is the only two that I have any experience with. Striker also says, does 2.5 inch at the same all-up weight have more backwards plus sideways momentum than 2-inch or less? Less, because the 2.5 inch frame and props are the only weight gain, and it's not enough weight gain to offset how much bigger the propellers get. And so I really prefer these tiny little ultra lightweight AIO based setups on 2-inch propellers in terms of flight characteristics. When you go to a 2.5 inch prop at this light of a weight, they start to feel like a toothpick, where every time you come off the throttle they just stop. They don't have that momentum that I'm looking for. And so yeah, I really prefer these 2-inch setups, which is great because they're doing a lot better with the GyroFlow 04 Lite stuff. So for once, things are in my favor. Mike K says, how are the RC and Power 1202.5 11,500 kV motors for the Caillou Mini or Max Frames M2? I can't find the Gep RC 1202.5 anywhere in stock. They're probably going to be exactly the same. The Gep RC 1202.5s may very well be made by RC and Power. I haven't tried the RC and Powers, but like there's only a couple of places that actually manufacture motors, so yeah, most motors aren't made by the company that's stamped on them anyway. So yeah, those RC and Powers are probably... RC and Power also makes awesome motors, and so like when in doubt, buy an RC and Power motor and it's going to be really good. Striker says, also, what have been the best motors for durability in your testing on the 2-inch rigs? No clue. All of the testing that I'm doing is surrounding gyro flow, and so if I were crashing these things, all of the data would be worthless. And so all of the flying that I've done in the past 3 weeks has been very safe with no crashes whatsoever. All that being said, it's not, again, close your eyes and point. Most of these motors are being made in the same spot, and then they're going to use the same materials. The biggest thing for durability is going to be to get onto a 12 or bigger motor. When you go from the 11 millimeter wide stator motors to the 12 millimeter wide stator motors, the motor shaft diameter increases from 1.5 to 2. And so any of the 12 series motors are going to be way more durable than any of the 11s or 10s or 9s or 8s. Above the bell, nothing changes. It's 1.5 millimeters, but on these motors, you're going to use your T-mount screws because otherwise you're going to break that 1.5 millimeter motor shaft every time you crash. And so above the bell doesn't really matter. The motor shaft above the bell on these bigger setups is just there to center the propeller. All of the strength comes from the T-mount screws. Ryan Sadat says, I'm totally here for the 04 Lite open prop journey. Maybe Binofly manufacturers will learn a thing or two from your findings and stop selling us Binoflies with crazy jello and gyro shake. Most of the Binoflies are pretty good, but with hard-mounted cameras, boy, it's tough. But yeah, don't hold your breath on that one. Not many. Beta FPV is the only manufacturer that well, that's not true. Newbie Drone has referenced my live streams before, as has Happy Model. But Beta FPV for sure. Beta FPV has blown me away in the last 2 years with how interested people there are at making stuff better. And my contact at Beta FPV has on multiple occasions specifically called out things from these live streams. I'm like, how? Why? That's crazy. So, yeah, some of them listen, most of them don't. Nyafu says, if you were to build another Caillou Mini style 2.5 inch, would it be 04 Lite or analog? If I could only have one, it would be 04 Lite. It's just so goddamn good. And the 2.5 inch builds need as much weight as possible. I had the 2.5 inch setup on analog for a while. I think I even did an edit here on the channel with it. And it's great fun. It's totally fun to fly, but it just doesn't have enough mass for the prop size. So if what's more important to you is flight time and or just making as much power as possible, then the 2.5 inch setup. If you want better flight performance, more balanced flight performance, where you actually have some momentum, like with your bigger builds, it's the 2-inch setup for sure. Allfaxis says, please smash that like button for CiottiFPV. Thank you, dude. Ryan Sadat says, the level of N-shittification. I thought just recently I realized it's N-shittification. Somebody in chat said it was E-shittification, which makes sense, right? E. But yeah, it's N-shittification. I forgot to scream about that lately. Of everything this year has been nuts. Even our whoops aren't safe. You hear about the Beta FPV gyro change. It seems like they're also suffering from the shortage. Yep, everybody is. But we've been there before. There's been a number of times in FPV that manufacturers have switched to a different gyro that they're like, it's better. And then we all start flying and we're like, no, it's not. It's way worse. What are you doing? And sometimes it's from gyro shortages. Sometimes it's just from, new board. It's better. You have to replace all your old ones and buy it. Yeah. And then a whole bunch of people that aren't paying attention buy all new shit and it's worse. And then they go, just kidding, version 2.3 with the old gyro. Buy it all. Hold on, YouTube did the thing. Scrolling back up.
I know where you are.
Oh my!
You
I just found it. Ryan says, I think the only solution to the gyro flow issue is saving weight everywhere else so we can weigh the crap out of the 04 to dampen the vibrations, like the chunky 04 mount I showed you. Well, that's only going to work if the camera is soft mounted. The only way to so with a hard mounted camera, the only way to improve the situation is to add weight to the whole goddamn thing. So the biggest battery possible, the biggest motors possible. And that's not a real solution because then you're just going to start breaking arms and there's going to be all kinds of other issues. Way back when, we're going 8, maybe 9 years ago when, oh my God, Tommy Tabahia was going to do a 3-inch rig with HD. Him and I had met at Quad Camp Atlanta when I did the power loop and Matty flip with the 4S 2.5-inch rig around a set of folding tables, which is the only reason any of you are watching me right now, because Joshua made an edit about it, saying like the sickest flying I've ever seen or something like that, sickest Matty flip I've ever seen. And then I made a video about it, and it took off a little bit, and then the channel took off a little bit, and then yeah, I kept making stuff and blah blah blah. So I met Tommy, and he was impressed by that, and then so when he was ready to make a micro, he contacted me on Facebook, and we started kind of working together. And what came out of some of that was the Acrobrat, and the Acrobrat was designed to have HD footage with no jello, and I told Tommy, like, that's not been possible. Like, none of the micros can produce even remotely clean HD footage. And so he called back to try to make it happen. He looked way back from the early days of FPV when I wasn't even into it, early days of drones, quadcopters, I should say, where they developed the clean and dirty system. And so basically you have a clean plate, and then you have it on some sort of a rubber isolator, and then you've got your dirty plate. And so the dirty plate has the motors and the props and whatever else you can have on it that's going to actually vibrate. And then the clean plate has as much mass as possible. And so that's why the Acrobrat looks so weird. It's got these vertical plates that are the clean plate, and that holds the battery and the camera. And so on that setup, on a clean dirty build, you want to add as much mass as you possibly can to the clean plate so that it can stay in place, and then the dirty plate can vibrate around underneath it, and then hopefully you've got soft mounts that are soft enough to isolate as much as possible. And so on a clean dirty setup, you add as much mass to the clean plate but that only works if the camera is somehow soft mounted. And so, yeah, on our setups where it's not, where it's hard mounted, and or on setups where, like, there are quads now that have the camera soft mounted, but typically you can't add weight there. Like, there's no real way to add weight to the camera, because it'll just be like the camera bolted to a little cage, and then the cage is on the rubber grommets. But I guess if that little soft mount camera platform cage thing was big enough, you could put like some RC car lead weights on it. Maybe that would certainly help. But yeah, on a hard mount setup, technically you can just add weight to the whole thing, but the amount of weight that you're realistically going to be able to add before you run into other problems, it's not going to have enough of an impact. So we're just kind of stuck. And the other thing that's going to happen is that adding weight is going to make you need to use more throttle all of the time. And so there's actually a chance that it'll make it worse. There's a chance that making it lighter could actually help. That would be an interesting test. All I would have to do for that test is run a light battery and then a heavy battery with a throttle limit. And then I'll leave the throttle limit on and fuck a bunch more of the testing up. It'll be great. Doc Holiday says bad gyros are in AIOs already. I've seen, I think Happy Model tells you do not use certain refreshing files. Refreshing files?
That's the phrasing that Beta FPV uses on their website. They're referring to flashing files, and translation has it's hard. Translating is hard.
FizzPV says SkyZone 04X Pro firmware update, latency down to HD 0 level. I have no idea. Nils Vo is going to be your guy for that. I don't have any SkyZone goggles, and I have not been paying much attention to that. But yeah, Nils Vo is all over it. Ryan Sadat says, I think you mentioned before, but the type of damping material affects what frequencies get through. The flight controller is on soft silicone while the 04 cam is on much stiffer TPU. Yep, absolutely. But the gyros in our flight controllers are good. Like, because we've been through this before, the manufacturers of FPV components, other than DJI apparently, have figured out which gyros work well and which ones don't. Apparently, DJI missed that memo. At least with the 04 Lite, they certainly did. Whatever gyro they were using on the 04 Pro, though, previously was actually fine. So they got the memo for the 04 Pro. It's kind of annoying that they didn't. And sort of the reason why I question whether it's like a money thing or like something else is that, like, why wouldn't they have just used the same gyro between the 04 Lite and the 04 Pro? I don't quite understand that, which makes me feel like they were paying more for the 04 Pro gyros, but, you know, whatever. Nothing we can do about it. Cjo says, so to be clear, this is a DJI issue. Do you think the RunCam thumbs will be affected? It depends on what gyro's in them. Yeah, that's all that matters. All that matters is the gyro. In the same way that we went through all this shit with the flight controllers, with the BMI 270, and there was that other BMI, and like the ICM 269490210. Yeah, specific gyros clip and at an earlier point than other gyros. And when a gyro clips and you're trying to use that gyro data to do something difficult, all hell breaks loose. Where'd we go? Brandon's Bean says, do you have a throttle limit, an 80% limit maybe? There he is. He immediately figures it out. So that's a chat comment from before I had story time with you. And so, yeah, Brandon just instantly figures it out, of course, because he's an intelligent human being, not like myself, who is as dumb as a sack of hammers sometimes. Ryan Sadat says, did Uriel's 04 wide for the Coyote Mini arrive yet? It did not. It is on the slow boat. Jamie Flies FPV says, put it on a rate profile with profiles on a switch. Gives you different throttle for profiles for different flying styles. Could totally do that. You can also set up warnings in OpenTX. And so every time you turn the transmitter on, if the knob that you're throttle limiting it on is not at 100%, it'll pop up a warning. Lot of ways that you can do, but none of you will do those ways because you're like me. Maybe some of you are like me. Brandon says DJI could potentially fix this by enabling a software anti-aliasing filter at the native sampling rate of the gyro. They can sample the data at a lower rate, but they must apply anti-aliasing at the native rate. Brandon, can you explain to me, like I'm 8 years old, what's the difference between aliasing and clipping? Are they the same thing? What is the aliasing that's happening?
I can explain it.
Oh, sweet. Never mind. You're off the hook, Brandon. Go ahead, Kevin.
There we go.
What are you, Googling it? You there? Did I lose audio? He's probably talking.
It's my mute button. Keeps getting stuck on the stream deck.
I got you. I thought you were Googling it.
I can explain how alien.
Your mute button happened again. Mute. You're on mute. Mute.
Oh my God. I'm this is okay. All right. Maybe
move. We will need Brandon.
Don't move. Technology fails us again. Okay. So, all right. Let's imagine for a second that you are full banana pants, hammer into the plastic. And you're like 6 G's, right? 6 G's, and then you drop throttle, right? And now you're just coasting. You're at 0 G's, right? And in between those two, your gyro is a really slow gyro, and it took one at 6 G's and the next one at 0 G's. So in the trace, there's just a drop off. You see a drop off from 6 G's to 0 G's. But what actually happened to the craft in between is that there was a deceleration down to 0 G's, right? And so what you see in the trace is a steep drop off, right? But what actually happened to the craft is that you did have a gentle deceleration. There was a curve there, but the data doesn't represent it that way. So that's one way that you get aliasing. The other way that you might know aliasing and anti-aliasing is from video games or from photography, right? So if you got those, you got the pixels.
Them jaggies.
I can tell by the pixels. It's when you apply anti-aliasing, and when you apply anti-aliasing, it smooths the transition between the two things. And so instead of getting those jaggies that you would associate with like PlayStation 1 era video games, you instead get a nice blur between them. And what it's doing typically is some flavor of averaging or other statistical weighting for the color, for the pixels for the colors that would be represented by that pixel. But yeah, that is anti-aliasing. Aliasing is when you have the jaggies.
Fair enough. So it's almost like a form of clipping, but not really. Not really.
Sort of, yeah. It's kind of clipping along the time axis. It's really more.
Bad, at the end of the day, it's bad data. Or actually, I guess it's a lack of data.
It's a lack of data, yeah. And so we can get into, you'll hear Beans talk about Nyquist limits and things like this, where it's that tells you how frequently you have to sample in order to catch the data that you care about, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, what matters is are you transitioning smoothly between these things and having anti-aliasing applied, or are you just letting it jump because you didn't spend enough time doing software development or your hardware sucks or whatever?
So what's happening in what's funny about that is GyroFlow is actually doing exactly what it's being told, but the instead of the gyro data having a nice smooth transition, it's jittering, and then that's exactly what we're seeing. GyroFlow is seeing that 90 degree, and it's doing exactly that, and that's why we get that really sharp. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Brandon can tell me how I'm wrong.
McShaky says, what are your thoughts on titanium prop screws versus steel and 1 versus 2 prop screws? You can never run 1 prop screw because it'll be out of balance, so never do that. Titanium prop screws are a really good idea, but they're hard to get. I have a couple sets of them that I use on like the live broadcast stuff. I have a couple sets of M2x7 titanium screws that like I covet for the most important builds. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't save that much weight over steel, but it does save a little bit. The smaller the craft, the smaller the motor, the bigger of a percentage change that is going to make, though. So if I had more titanium M2x6s and M2x7s, I would love to put them on these guys, but I don't, and it's okay. It's fine. But yeah, they're a good idea. If you can find a source for decent quality titanium M2x6, M2x7s, get some. I'm going to stress decent quality, though. CiottiFPV used to sell titanium M2 screws. They were not good quality, and they would strip out really easily. And then so you would like crank down your T-mount prop screw, and it would strip, and you wouldn't be able to get it out, and it would be super annoying. And so yeah, it's tough and so a lot of times the good quality titanium M2 hardware is absurdly expensive, like ridiculous, even at high quantities, which is why I've never like bothered to. I've gotten a couple good quality ones from Brother Hobby. Used to have a line of motors called VY, and VY has, as an acronym, has some meaning basically surrounding lightweight, and they came with titanium M2x6, M2x7 screws, and so those are the ones that I have. Way back in early days of the live stream, I actually showed you guys how to flame heat treat titanium to change it to cool purple and yellow and blue colors. That's my titanium hardware that I use in the most important stuff that I've got. But yeah, it's not a big enough difference to offset the like dollar per screw that I've seen for decent quality M2 hardware. Nyafu says, just finished my first TBS Mojito flight. That new build stress never goes away, huh? Damn near had a panic attack because I was so scared. Currently uploading the clip to YouTube. I remember that. I remember fresh build stress. It does go away because I'll maiden stuff and bash it into shit. It does eventually go away. Probably after many years, though. Ryan Sadat says, have you tried putting a heavier battery on the 2.5, like 750 to 1000 mAh? I haven't, because the electronics package that I keep bouncing around is on BT 3.0, and the biggest BT 3.0 batteries I have are 450. But a few days ago, I finished making BT 3.0 to XT30 adapters, and so I can now. And also the frames I'd been using have limited space front to rear. This Bando Turtle frame here has a shitload of space, so I can put a big battery on there. And we can test it. And so yeah, here's my little BT to XT30 adapters that I put a bunch of epoxy in. I talked about a couple streams ago. And so yeah, I'm gonna leave this out to remind myself. All right, so that's the correct adapter, and then I'm gonna grab the biggest battery that I have, which is a 2S 850. And so I'll try this on the Bando Turtle, and we'll see what happens. It could get better from mass damping it. It could get worse from needing more throttle and more RPM to move the thing out of its own way. That'll be an interesting test. Sporny says, my new 2.5-inch frame is 21 grams plus TPU, but a lot stiffer. I'm excited how it handles vibrations. Very cool. It's 11:50, and I do want to fly on this live stream. Kevin, can you test my brain by reading out some questions while I'm flying, and I'll give dumb answers?
Ryan Stott says, I hate to ask you this question, but what has been keeping you from going 3 to 4S on at least the 2.5? I know you're not a fan of more cells, but it could be fun.
There's just no need. They make plenty of power on 2S. BT 3.0 is an amazing connector. When you go up to a higher voltage, in order to maintain the same amount of weight, the pouch has to become a smaller amount of milliamps. And 450 milliamps is about as small as you want to go before you lose a lot of performance. So and the 450 milliamp 2S batteries is what's been powering these things really, really, really well. So going up to 3S, if we don't want a battery that weighs 50% more, which I don't, I would have to go down to like a 350 mAh battery, and now that battery is going to perform worse because the pouch is so much smaller. And so, yeah, not a lot of reason to increase voltage until you get to the limits of the lower voltage, and we are definitely not at the limits of these 2S rigs yet. They've still got plenty left to go. And at the weight, but the biggest thing I think though is that the weight that we're building these things at, to go to 3S, it would have to be such a low mAh battery that the battery would just be a pain in the ass. And they're also hard to find. There aren't many batteries in those smaller milliamps because the battery manufacturers know that they start to struggle.
Webster says, have you tested the air cam from Beta FPV?
When they first sent it to me, yes. I don't know if it's different from what they just released. I tested it a while ago when they sent it to me, and it was just a camera. There was nothing magical about it. It was, from what I remember, it was just kind of like the CO3. It wasn't really any better. And so, yeah, I didn't really give much thought or testing to it.
Brandon says, with regards to gyro, aliasing has the effect of misinterpreting very high frequencies as very low ones instead. This is why gyro flow does these stupid jutters. And I failed to go into this. I'm glad Brandon called it out.
So that's why the low pass filter works.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is like if you're off, if your like max frequency that you can sample for is too low compared to the vibration that you're getting, then it'll read that vibration as offset by the sampling rate. I forget the exact math, how the exact math here works, but basically, like you'll end up with like a really low frequency that comes out of it because as it's doing that sampling, as it's coming by and doing that sampling, it's watching that waveform, right, and taking a slice of at a particular time, and the waveform may have moved a bunch in between, but what it's reading is that it's at like 5 hertz or whatever.
Sure,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah, and that's the aliasing portion when it comes to vibration filtering. Brian's Dot says, I don't think we are putting enough force into the screws on sub 3-inch builds for the titanium grade to be a problem, as long as they aren't aluminum. Pretty sure even low grade titanium is fine.
It's not the amount of force, it's how often we go into those screw holes, right? You bang up a prop, you change it. You bang up another prop, you change it. You change it, you change it. So it's just that repeated putting of the driver in there, and then yeah, loosening and tightening, loosening and tightening, loosening and tightening. I also tried them in the frame in like 5-inch frames, and they were a disaster there as well. Because the same deal, like 5-inch, although it is a little bit different. On 5-inch frames, you have to really hammer that hardware down, or it'll vibrate loose.
Damping grease,
so, yeah.
yo.
Yeah, right.
No. I run damping grease in all of my 5-inch motor screws, and I think all my 3-inch motor screws as well. And never had one back out.
I only run it in between the arms.
The other thing is you got to realize that low grade titanium, like titanium is not just one thing. Like part of what gives titanium or any metal its different grades is that it's actually mixed with other stuff, other metals,
alloys, right?
right?
Yeah.
And so low grade stuff has looser tolerances or potentially different, cheaper mix of things. And so you might end up with some aluminum in there or some zinc in there or whatever, right? And if the mixture is not quite as, on cheaper manufactured, even at the same grade, they may have larger pockets. They haven't broken up the other things that are in there quite as much. In theory, they have passed certification, and we all know that low-cost manufacturers definitely follow certification guidelines. Hello, Teddy.
There he is. Freshly groomed, fluffy as fuck. No more knots. Oh god. Oh no.
Brian's
Alloy
Dot
life.
Yeah. Yep. Brian's Dot also says, how likely do you think it is that some of the balance issues on the prop testing were the T-mount screws having enough of a weight difference to cause vibrations?
In my testing, it's not, because I always make sure that I match the screws up. For those of you that are like me and collect and hold on to every single screw that you get from every single motor, frame, everything, they are all they tend to be a little bit different. And you do have to pay attention to that because they weigh different amounts. And so the heads of the screws will look different. They'll be a slightly different color. And I'm a crazy person, so I always take time to make sure that with T-mount screws specifically, it only really matters with T-mount screws, that you run 2 at a time that look exactly the same and are the same length and all that jazz. So yeah. That is very much on my radar.
Also run into situations where some motors and prop combinations need 8mm long screws, and some just need the 7.
Yep, you're always going to be bouncing back and forth between M2x6 and M2x7. Every once in a while, I'll buy 8.
On those ones that will take the longer screw, you can accidentally swap for a shorter screw. It's not drastic, but it is potentially a source of vibration.
Indeed. Yeah, that'll absolutely. Or we're just running one screw. Running one screw will vibrate the fillings out your teeth.
It'll really screw you.
What else we got?
That's it. We're caught up on chat.
Holy shit on a shingle. I'm going to fly one more battery. Hurry up and ask any last second questions, friends. Hopefully you learned something today. If you learned something, help me teach you some more. Go over to CiottiFPV.com, click some buttons, join my Patreon, buy something from my Etsy store, use my affiliate links. There's no reason not to use affiliate links. Like, help people on YouTube keep making stuff. Ben Jordan's got an excellent video he just put out on the stupid robot dogs. I watched that right before the live stream. That was thrilling as always. That dude is just. Oh my God.
I need to go subscribe to him. His recent videos have been amazing.
Oh, so good. His audio stuff totally loses me, but like, man.
Did you see the one on data centers? The like low frequency data centers causing health? Dude. Yeah, subsonic sound.
How insane is that? Yeah, his videos are like
subaudible sound.
In this most recent video, he calls it out. He's like, you know, you would think that our government agencies would be the ones to be helping us with this stuff, but instead it's just some idiot on YouTube that's changing everything and trying to protect everyone. I can't believe I just bounced inside the bass drum. Here we go. Here's the impossible task that is getting out of the fucking bass drum. Oh boy. Oh boy.
While you do that, Brian's Dot came up with another comment. We need a stream dedicated to gear organization. I feel like keeping my screws, motors, props is getting out of control. Time I find a storage system, I run out of space and need a new one.
That's how it works.
FizPV says just ordered 2 of the blue RRTs.
Nice. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, organization is that is a thing that I constantly battle with. You gotta buy the separators, the organizers, the whatever, and figure out a system that you'll keep up with.
Yep. This sucks. The problem when I'm in here is I can't tell up and down because it's round, and so every time I take off, oh, it was so close on that one.
What about angle mode?
Got it.
Oh, you're out.
Oh, good idea. Angle mode. Holy shit. Yeah. Woo!
Everybody's got angle mode on a Switch, right?
It's more fun to struggle. Any new Castle Crash news, Kevin?
Let's see. Well, tickets are on sale, as are meal plans and late night snacks. So Vixens is going to be feeding us all night long, and this year you can pre-order, and you can actually pre-order those snacks as well. And you can just go on the website and be like, oh, we've got cheese sticks and jalapeno poppers. I don't remember if that's what it is, but I want both of those things. We'll just throw both of them in the basket, and the nice people at Vixens will hook you up.
Awesome.
What else is going on? Changing up the flight line arrangement for the front flight line a little bit. Try to get some more shade for folks this year. And a bigger flight area up front. If you guys are aware of Madman and J Bones, who are the Hang Time live stream Tuesday nights at 9 p.m., they are doing more obstacles for us for this year.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, they've been working on them basically since last Castle Crash.
Oh my God. Nice.
So, yeah. Yeah.
There's my 3 batteries. You guys better all fly the other 3. 6 batteries a day, friends. You'll be a way better pilot if you do it every day. I promise you. God, Kevin.
Ryan's Stat says the issue is not just organizing, but organizing in a way that you can find the one specific thing when you randomly need it. Amen, brother.
For real.
He also wants to know more about Castle Crash. It is over Labor Day weekend, which is a little later this year, which is a little nice. I think it's the 4th through the 7th. If you volunteer, you can get in for as little as 50 cents, or if you message me on Discord, I can send you a coupon code to make it free 99.
Nice.
No, really, actually $0. The only reason we have to charge anything for the volunteer tickets is because of stupid bots trying to get free stuff. Trenton, South Carolina. It's an awesome time. If you volunteer, you also can come in a day or potentially too early, depending on how much you're willing to volunteer. Setup day is on Thursday, and then the event starts Friday morning. So Thursday night, once we're done, all the volunteers get to party in the woods. It's a great time. We also feed you on Thursday with typically it's Bojangles or Domino's pizza, something that we can get delivered out in the middle of the woods. But yeah.
I'm gonna play us out with some Castle Crash flight footage from the Tiny Whoop area.
Love it. Worth flying out from California, in my opinion. Yes, I've been to Rampage. I've been to Sloss. I have seen plenty of footage from Beast of the East. I went to Flying Tines last year. Each festival has its own character. But I mean, I'm biased because I've helped put Castle Crash on. This is now my 4th year helping put Castle Crash on. So yeah, I'm biased towards Castle Crash, but I think it's a great time. And everybody that I talk to is like, oh yeah, this is wonderful. This is the one that I'm going to.
It is a blast. My God, it is a blast. Ryan Sadat, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. And McShaky says, what's current best 300 mAh battery for 65mm analog? They're pretty much all the same other than the Lava V2 280s. The Lava V2 280s are super fun, significantly lighter, and they're the only ones that really stand out. Other than those, the Newbie Drone Nitro Nectar Gold NX69s, the Weebleed 300s, the Weebleed 340s, and the Lava V2 320s, they all fly just like each other. So close your eyes and point for any of the 300s, but the Lava V2 280s, they're pretty awesome. You guys got to try those if you haven't yet. They're legit. Any closing words, Kevin? Beast of the Yeast, Sporny says. I think your mute's back. Oh, there it is. Now you're back.
No, I'm here. I'm just thinking. I'm pondering life. You should spend some time pondering life. Just get clear 10, 15 minutes. Get everything off of your calendar. Put on some nice soft music and just think about your life.
There you go. And then when you start screaming about it, put everything back on so that you don't have to think about the horrors.
Sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Kevin, thanks for your help as always.
Yeah, man, you're welcome.
Be good, people. I'll see you Wednesday. I'm not sure what we'll do. So I might not see you Wednesday. I might have a gig Wednesday. I might actually also have a gig on Friday. But the Friday gig is more locked in than the Wednesday gig. So Wednesday we should be here. We should be good. But I'll let you know, as always, on YouTube, Discord, and Smoke Signal. Be good. Here's some flying from Castle Crash's Whoop House last year. I'll see you guys maybe Wednesday, maybe Friday, maybe Sunday. Later, friends.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams. Yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings barking at the breeze, throttling
Shotties on sticks, Teddy's on pause. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Yo, Shotty behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle Mike. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy's spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy's spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, darling at top speed things, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPVs, fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy spaghetti and CiottiFPV.